Thank you, Christy. It's an honor to be here and to have been a judge this year, having attended many of the previous ceremonies, both here and on the West Coast, and meeting many of the wonderful honorees when they received their awards. So thank you for having me do this year. And it was quite a year in terms of the products and the people that were defending the First Amendment. And so we had a difficult time, but it was an exciting time, and there were so many worthy nominees. It's my honor to introduce our first one. You know, as Christy mentioned, if you look at any form of the media now, the enemy of the people, democracy is on trial every day, it seems. And there's a struggle to determine what it is and what makes it, what hurts it, what makes it stronger, and often how do we get it back? And part of that debate is always about how to raise children and young adults to become stewards of this democracy. What information and ideas should they be exposed to so they could become informed owners of the American idea? And one big question of late has been, has the world changed so much that we now need to change the nature of education and the exposure that made us who we are? And can ideas and information hurt us if we know them? An article came along and a book came along with this wonderfully provocative title. It's called The Coddling of the American Mind: How Good Intentions and Bad Ideas Are Setting Up a Generation for Failure. This New York Times bestseller explores the new culture of safetyism on college campuses and the threat it poses to democratic principles and individual well-being. The book describes what the authors refer to as the great untruths, and they're very simple, so I'm going to tell you what they are. The book describes, and I think when you hear them, you'll be able to understand why we have some of the problems we have today. Number one, that what doesn't kill you makes you weaker. Second, that you should always trust your feelings. And third, that life is a battle between good and evil people. The book's authors, Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt, argue that the only way to protect the young from the breakdown of democracy is to expose them to the dangers posed by other people's free speech, and to build their confidence in their own resilience in the same arena of open debate. They also provide us the real truths to counteract those that have stood the test of time and that should be the underlying principles of education and exposure. Greg is an attorney, a New York Times bestselling author, and the president and CEO of the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, otherwise known as FIRE. Jonathan is a social psychologist at New York University's Stern School of Business with a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania and 16 years of teaching experience in the Department of Psychology at the University of Virginia. In my day job, I get to see the power of ideas fully debated and the power that comes from that in building a more just society that we want to see, and how values-based guiding principles are the best way to get there. That society must have room for nuance and discomfort in the public discourse. And the great news is, we can handle it. In fact, we must, and we better do it if we want to get to the country that we want to see. And it's my pleasure to present the award for book publishing to Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt, and Greg will be accepting the award on their behalf.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was really great. The Hefner Foundation, Christy, everybody, and many people in this room are really dear to my heart. I talk about how the book came out of some very hard times, psychologically, personally, I was experiencing back in 2007. And right when I needed it most, I got in 2008 the Playboy Foundation Award for Freedom of Speech. And it was, I don't think you even understand how much I needed that at that point. I was really getting discouraged. So thank you so much. So I'd also like to, I'm just going to start with thank yous. I'd like to thank the Hefner Foundation. Again, I'd like to thank Christy. I'd like to thank Amanda Warren, who's here with the foundation, I've known for years. Of course, I'd like to thank my wonderful co-author, Jonathan Haidt. He is just an incredible person to work with, and as sweet as he comes off in interviews as he is in real life. Max Brockman and John Brockman, who are our agents, Ginny Smith, who was our editor-in-chief, and then the team at FIRE, which includes, most importantly, Pamela Presky. She was our chief researcher during it, who I hired as my research assistant, Eli Feldman, and Adam Goldstein, who I believe is actually in this room right now, or at least I hope he is, who's at FIRE. And really the entire team at FIRE. And so the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, and since this is more of a free speech gathering, I'm going to be talking more about the free speech aspects of the book and my work. I mean, it's been my my lifelong mission is to do free speech. A little surprised to find myself doing it on campus, but even back in 2001, I was shocked with how easy it was to get in trouble for what you say on the modern college campus. And FIRE is turning 20 years old this year, and we're having an event in New York that's going to include Salman Rushdie, who's one of my my personal free speech heroes. And if you want an idea of what the cases look like, I wrote a book back in 2012 called Unlearning Liberty, which I thought that administrators were teaching a generation the lessons of that were anti-democratic in a lot of different ways. What got added to it is I also feel like we're not only teaching them the habits of unfree people, we're teaching them the habits of anxious and depressed people, and polarized people, by the way, too, which is a way to kind of understand where the book is coming from and how it fits in. We're always trying to reach new people in new and surprising ways. I'm the executive producer of a movie called Can We Take a Joke? That's premise is essentially that Lenny Bruce would not survive 5 minutes on the modern college campus, and he really wouldn't. We are also coming out with a movie called Ira, a documentary about the great Ira Glasser, who was the executive director of the ACLU for 25 years. Personal hero of mine, incredibly charming, interesting person, it was a passion project from Nico Perino, who's on the FIRE staff, that I'm really excited is going to be coming out later in the year. For people who are skeptical or think they might be skeptical, you should understand that any opinion that is represented in this room, I have seen someone get censored for it on a college campus at some point or another. I swear you would be surprised at the diversity of the cases and who gets in trouble when and how ridiculous some of the cases are. And I have to say that one thing that I have realized is visiting different campuses. I was going along, feeling like, okay, I was going to some of these more working class schools, giving talks and feeling pretty good about the situation for free speech on campus. I did a visit to Haverford about 3 weeks ago, where I was told pretty directly by a number of students, including the editor of the college newspaper, that they just have kind of given up arguing about stuff. That it just was too much. That essentially, there was too much ability to just be called out, and that there really was no room for disagreement. And it was heartbreaking for me to hear. So what can you do? This is the most important thing for me to say to this room. Look at your alma mater's free speech, due process, and 10 words rating on the FIRE website. We actually rate the 450 top schools in the country. Also check out the Heterodox Academy as well. That's Jonathan Haidt's organization that talks about things like viewpoint diversity within universities. Don't contribute another penny to your schools unless you actually check out, make sure that they don't have speech codes and that they actually teach students about freedom of speech. We can't be hard, freedom of speech, academic freedom in particular, they're sophisticated concepts. And you can't be down on students if nobody's actually ever taught them these sophisticated concepts. And almost no school in the country offers an orientation program that talks about free speech on campus. I felt pretty good about the fact that I wanted to tell everybody not to donate to your schools unless you actually check it on free speech. Given there's a piece in the LA Times today that's actually titled, today, don't just give money to your college of choice, donate some free speech backbone. And I was like, I don't know this guy, it wasn't a conspiracy, I just thought that was pretty great. But we're realizing that getting to people in high schools might be even more important. Be creative about it, rethink it. Hannah Arendt talks about even if you're right, you have to reinvent the truth over and over again so it sounds fresh to new ears. And we should rethink about how we teach about free speech. As much as we're supposed to venerate him, Oliver Wendell Holmes, it drives me nuts. And it's not about the marketplace of ideas. It's about infinite curiosity of what people believe, not even if it's troublesome, but especially when it is. We should be infinitely curious about each other. We should want to know, and that's an endless task. It is about knowing the nature of the world as it is. It's both a Buddhist concept, it's a Western concept, and it's very much a free speech concept. Not as we wish it to be. It takes bravery and courage, and above all else, to have that knowledge, it requires freedom of speech. Thank you so much. Thank you for the award.